Welcome to Introductory JavaScript. You're doing this for either of these two units, Apply Introductory Object-Oriented Language Skills, or you're doing it for Produce Basic Client-Side Script for Dynamic Web Pages, either one. We'll go through this first lesson that you'll notice starts with HTML introduction. JavaScript is a language for the web that runs from HTML pages. So you need to know a little bit of HTML before you can start writing JavaScript. HTML is hypertext markup language. It's the main markup language for creating web pages that can be displayed in a browser. HTML tells a browser what to display. A more comprehensive explanation is given at W3 Schools, and I have a link in the lesson to the home page for the HTML tutorial at W3 Schools. I'll be referring to W3 Schools a lot in these lessons. W3 Schools is a great resource for finding all things web programming, HTML, later on JavaScript. Just a great resource to find everything you need. Back to the lesson. HTML5 is the newest HTML standard. I've got a link, another link on the lesson, more information at W3 Schools. I've got a link to the HTML5 tutorial homepage at W3 Schools here as well. And I'll leave those W3 Schools links for you to look at your leisure. Again, at W3 Schools, I'll be using it a lot, just a really good resource. You can use any editor to write HTML code. For example, you can use simple editors like Notepad or Notepad++ on Windows, or if you're using a Mac, you can use TextEdit or TextWrangler. Later on in the course, I'll be using a more advanced tool like Adobe Dreamweaver to create HTML and JavaScript files. At this stage, we'll start with the simplest editor, so I'd like you to open the editor of your choice and create a new file and save the file as intro.html. Be sure the file extension is .html or HTML. I'll stress this again. So I'm using TextWrangler. I'm on a Mac. I'm using TextWrangler. If you're on a Windows machine, you can open Notepad or Notepad++. And I've got my new file ready. All I have to do is save it. File, save. If you're using Notepad or TextEdit, make sure you save file as either all files or .html. Make sure the file type save as allows you to save as .html. I've created a folder where I'm going to store my example files. It's important that you remember where you save this file. I'm going to use the name given in the lesson. I'm going to call this intro.html. Again, this .html is really important. It must have file extension HTML or HTML. Otherwise, the browser won't read it, won't open it. The file name itself, by convention, begins with a lowercase letter. You can have as many words as you like in the file name, separated by hyphens or underscores, or you can use camelback notation. You cannot have any blank spaces in the file name, and no funny punctuation marks. We'll talk more about that later. So I'm saving this as intro.html. Again, if you're using Notepad or TextEdit, make sure file type allows you to save it as .html. Save in a place you'll find it again, and double check that the file extension is .html or .htm. I've saved mine in a folder I've created, my JavaScript examples, 2014, there it is. And if I look back at the lesson, It says below is some example HTML5 code. You'll learn all about how this code works in lessons to come. Copy this code and paste it into the intro.html file you just created in your editor. Okay, so what I'd like you to do is just copy all that code that's in the orange box. Make sure you get everything. My name's not that important, but you might as well get that in there as well. Just copy all that code in the orange box. Make sure you get all of it. Make sure you get that opening doc type tag as well as the /HTML. Just make sure you get all of it. Copy it. You can use Control-C, or you can say Edit, Copy. Go back to your editor and paste. You can say Control-V. You can say Edit, Paste. There's all the code. Make sure it's all there. Make sure the open angle bracket doc type HTML is the first thing there. And you'll probably see my name and date with a hyphen angle bracket at the end. Make sure it's all there. Save it. And now we're going to open it in a browser. There's a couple of ways to do this. Probably the easiest way is to go to your Finder window or Windows Explorer window, click and drag the file into a browser. That's one way to open it. Or you can go to the browser and say File, Open File, find the file wherever you saved it, and open it that way if you prefer. I like to just click and drag, doesn't matter. And this is what you should see. You should see those words, HTML5 and JavaScript example, and you should see a bright green rectangle. If you don't, it means you didn't copy all of the code in that orange box. You need to go back and make sure you copy every single line, paste it into your file with the file extension .html, save it, and then open it in the browser. Okay, so hopefully this is what you see. Going back to my lesson, save the file as we've done and then open it in Chrome or Firefox. Notice the HTML tags enclosed in angle brackets. For example, doc type HTML. We'll talk more about that later. And HTML, the HTML tag, lang equals in, we'll talk about that later too. So HTML tags, the HTML language is made up of tags. The HTML tag is here. You'll notice another one down here, the body tag. We'll include these in every HTML file we create. Notice the corresponding closing tags for many of the tags. Body has a /body tag. HTML has a /HTML tag. Notice how the body and /body tags are nested inside the HTML and /HTML tags. There's a little bit of JavaScript in this code as well. The JavaScript starts with the HTML script tag. Everything between the script and /script tag is JavaScript. The script tag tells the browser, oh, we're not going to speak in HTML for a while now, we're going to speak in JavaScript instead. So up until here, we were speaking HTML. Now we're speaking JavaScript. And again, we'll learn all about this later. This won't make sense to you right now, and that's okay. This is some of the stuff we're going to be learning in these lessons. And as you saw, that code, the HTML code and the JavaScript code together made this bright green rectangle. What we're going to do is use this example code to make some code of our own. I want you to try this HTML5 exercise with me. Whoops. I want you to create a new HTML file. I want you to refer to the example code above and save the file as myrectangles.html. What we're going to do is write code to display 4 different size rectangles. The example code I gave you made one rectangle. I want you to make 4 different size rectangles. and I want each rectangle to be a different color. We're going to include an H1 heading at the top of the page with our own words in it. We're going to include a brief description underneath each rectangle. For example, this is a big green rectangle. This is just to get you familiar with the code, to get you start looking at the code. Again, I don't expect you to understand every bit of this code yet. You won't. That's okay. This is just to get us familiar with what HTML looks like and what JavaScript code looks like. So again, referring to the example code I've given you, let's make a new file called myrectangles.html. Alright, so I'm going back to my editor. I'm going to make a new file. Before I forget, I'll save it with the name. The exercise asked me to save it as myrectangles, okay? .html. So let's save this thing. File save. If you need to, make sure you're saving as the right file type. You might need to make a change down here to say save as file type HTML or all files, something like that. I'm going to name this myrectangles.html. Very important to have the .html extension. This time, notice I've used two words separated by a hyphen. Again, no blank spaces in file names. No funny punctuation marks. This is okay. My hyphen rectangles, that's fine. There's no spaces in that. The only punctuation is a hyphen. Hyphens and underscores are okay. No other punctuation marks. So save this. Make sure you know where you saved it so you can find it again. And referring to the example code, I'm going to make 4 different size rectangles this time. I'm going to write an HTML file with JavaScript in it that makes 4 different rectangles. All right.